Everyone spent the whole season saying they love our transfer business from the summer. Well, it's time to find out if we really love it. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith, Blackman, Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, look, everybody loved the transfer business. Ramsdale, what a revelation. Ben White, great addition. Martin Odegaard, how could you have any problem with Martin Odegaard? Brilliant. Tomiyasu, we love him. All right, out injured, we love him. But Sambi Lakanga, Nuno Tavares looked bright, looked good, looked exciting. Now we're going to find out, did we roll the perfect, what's a good roll? It's not snake eyes. What's the opposite of like snake, like double sixes? Did we roll 7? 7 is crap out. You know what? Forget the craps table analogy. The point is we're going to need all of them now, not just the ones we've been relying on. And we will see just how right we got it indeed, as they say. All right. So quick update on the fundraiser. A very, very, very generous anonymous donor has come to me and said that this person will match every single pound of donation up to 10,000 pounds between now and Monday evening. So we are going to go over our goal. It is a testament to the power of this community, Andrew, our Arsblog's community, the just generosity of spirit of Arsenal fans, and I can't thank you enough. But that doesn't mean the work is done and we have a chance to do something special. So if you've been thinking, I might give, maybe I'll give, maybe you don't care about the VIP box or you wouldn't be able to make it, so you haven't given. If every pound you give now is double, because this anonymous donor is going to match it up to 10,000 pounds. So you give 5, you're really giving 10. You give 100, you're really giving 200. I know there's some of you who can't give, and that's totally okay, and I understand. But if you can, now would be a great time to do it because it counts double essentially. And because of that, we're going to extend the drawing for the VIP box through that Monday day so we can get all of the match donations in there. We also have an auction for 5 of the box seats. 2 of them have already been spoken for. And if you go to our website, ArsenalVisionPodcast.com, and just click charity, you'll see the link to the main fundraiser. You'll also see the link to the auction. If you're like, you know what, I want to give, but I just want to get the box. I just want to know I'm getting in there. You can go to the auction site. But don't worry, every 5 pounds of donation, you are in the sweepstakes to win one of those other 2 that are going to be sweepstakes off. So lots of ways to enter. Remember, the proceeds go to save the children through the Arsenal Foundation. We're supporting the Arsenal Foundation, and this cause helps children, refugees from the war in Ukraine, but also from wars in areas like Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Palestine, Ethiopia, Kashmir. This is a cause that helps people who need it, who are getting the media coverage to bring the attention to the cause, but also people that aren't getting that attention. And I'm very, very proud of the community for what you've done. So thank you for that. Tim is on Twitter at Stobeto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
It's pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, very much so. Blown away by how quickly we've reached that target in not even 4 days, really. Just absolutely incredible. So thank you so much to everyone.
Yeah, can't say enough. And to Andrew, who has also donated his entire Patreon revenue to charity for the month. Just incredible philanthropy within the community. Tim, I will have the rare pleasure of saying you were actually maybe too loud. Normally I'm like, Clive, speak up. But just a little. So if you want to either sit back from your mic or just tone it down a bit, no problem either way. And joining us now on the main pod, a veteran of the live streams and someone who is should have been on the main pod much more recently, but is here now. It's Jessica Black. You find her on Twitter at Jessinho Tweets now. Is that where we're at, Jess?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Okay. I just, the change, I don't like change. It's scary. Pretty exciting stuff though, right? To be able to do this fundraiser and help. I mean, the cool thing is, right, like helping children who are refugees from war, there's really no disputing the importance of that cause. Like nobody's going to come back and be like, not a good cause.
Yeah, nobody's going to say it's not important, but the work that everybody's doing and the amount of money that you guys have been able to raise so quickly, just like you said, speaks to the community. And so amazing work there and exciting times. Yeah, well said. All right, well, look, I know people are here to hear about the football, so that's what we'll do. But I did want to let you know, and reminder, if you give now, between now and Monday, that drawing is going to happen on Monday evening. So if you want to be in it, now's the time to do it. And our phenomenal anonymous donor is going to match up to 10,000 pounds. So please do that now. Okay. I got a few fun topics. We will get to Champions League reaction because I think there's some interesting stuff to talk about there, and a bit on Everton potentially going down. I'm curious to get your takes on that. But I want to just start with the main headline of the week and really of the season now. Tim, it's how we cope. And
last season, Mikel Arteta has really been through the ringer as a manager in a very short period of time between COVID absences and players who had to be, or he had to freeze out or whatever you want to say, and, playing in front of empty grounds and all kinds of crazy stuff. But last season, what looked like it could have been a promising run in both in Europe and domestically, really, I think, short-circuited by injury, and specifically a Kieran Tierney injury. Now he's not only dealing with a season-ending injury for Tierney, but what at least preliminarily could be a multi-week absence for Thomas Partey, who has felt like the linchpin to our resurgence in many ways. So right off the top of your head, how do you think last season's experience will influence how Arteta chooses to deal with these absences this time around?
Yeah, I think it could do, because I think it could persuade him that perhaps moving too many pieces around isn't the way to go. So, for example, we saw Xhaka move to left back in the second half at Selhurst Park, and that's I thought that was the right move at the time. But the more I think about it, the more I personally think we shouldn't do that for the Brighton game just yet. So maybe that experience, maybe the kind of, and, for the Villarreal game, he obviously also played Smith Rowe as a false nine, and, maybe in another setting that might have worked. Perhaps if we weren't already, hadn't already shifted an important piece into a different position in the team, maybe that's one of those things he'd be inclined to try again in isolation and not against the backdrop where, we've got an important central midfielder moving to left back and someone potentially slightly unfamiliar coming into midfield. So that may inform his thinking, because if you think about it, Elliot, basically at the end of both of his his seasons in charge so far, he's kind of had to tweak things, and we saw him go to the back three at the end of his first season, and that was enough to get us over the line in the FA Cup, albeit the league results still stayed pretty up and down. And then last season, he tried the kind of Xhaka thing at left back, the Smith Rowe at false nine, and neither of them really worked. And I think the other thing as well is perhaps the lesson he might have learned from that is not to over-index what happens in one game, because if you remember last season, he first tried that Xhaka at left-back thing, or at least the first game Tierney was injured for, I believe, was away at Sheffield United, and Arsenal won 3-0, and we continued with it. And really, in hindsight, we should have just said, yeah, but it's Sheffield United, and they were basically already relegated at that stage. So I think that maybe this is one of those scenarios where you take it one game at a time. I'm sure we'll come on to Tavares, but my position would be start him on Saturday. Let's see how he goes. If he has another disaster, then you kind of rethink it. But it's an opportunity as well, because the question is whether Palace sussed us out or we have been sussed out. Maybe that gives us an opportunity to change things up. Maybe it gives us an opportunity to kind of go a little bit horses for courses and look at the teams we're playing and tailor our approach. It's not ideal, but yeah, I do think that Arteta, he's certainly got a lot of data points to go on here. And look, this happens, right? You do something, it works until it doesn't. We played 4-4-1-1 for 6 games this season. It worked, it didn't, we stopped doing it. That's just the way it goes.
Well, breaking news. Arsenal has put out what can only be described as an ominous update on Thomas Partey, and I'm stealing that word directly from Jess in the chat, so thanks for drawing my attention to it, Jess. See, this is the important thing. When one person is talking, everybody else should be on Twitter, so we know if anything's happening. Listening is so overrated. Our number 5 was substituted during Monday night's game against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park after aggravating his right thigh. I'm aggravated by a lot of parts of my body, if I'm honest. Thomas has since revealed further assessments received. Reading is fundamental. And subsequent scan has shown muscle damage to his right thigh. We will continue to assess Thomas in the coming weeks, during which time he will also receive further specialist consultations. Everyone will be working hard to get Thomas back on the pitch as soon as possible. Sounds like they got their best team of people on it. Jess, freak out! Can you please bring the appropriate level of panic? Whatever we think should happen at left back, and I want to roll back to that in a moment, because we did rewatch the performance, Clive and I, for patrons, and we focused on the Tavares performance, and I actually think it's underappreciated. I think there was quality there that's concealed somewhat by his role in 2 goals that maybe were more Gabriel's responsibility, but hard not to move on from that position to the one that I think has really been, as I said, the linchpin to our resurgence and to the 4-3-3 system we've used, and that's Thomas Partey. This sounds, if not season-ending-ish, certainly multi-weekish, and I don't know that I think we can just say, Sambi, go man the entire midfield by yourself in games like United and Chelsea. I mean, maybe this weekend at Brighton, even that I think is a question when you have players like Basuma tracking you down. What's your reaction to this scary news and how we need to cope with it?
Hashtag pain. I'm looking at this and this is kind of what I expected. When he went down, I just kind of thought, you pulled that muscle, you did it again, and it's going to be weeks on weeks on weeks. I was hoping that maybe I was overreacting and Arsenal would come with something like, 2 or 3 weeks, but them not even giving any sort of timeline, which I know since Arteta has been here, they've done it a lot less, but there's no timeline on that. It could be for the rest of the season. It could be he makes a little cameo against Everton at the end of the season. I don't know. But since he rated himself a 4 out of 10, he's been slowly clicking into gear. And in so many games, I felt like through December, all the way up until now, he's been pretty faultless, very good, world-class levels, in my opinion. And he's been managing midfield basically on his own. So it does make me really worry about how we can get that same level in midfield, because I haven't really, and this is I like Arteta. I just feel like I have not seen him be able to move pieces around in a way where we get similar results without some sort of 2 or 3 game period where we just kind of fall flat. And so it does worry me. Sambi plus Xhaka seems doable, but we haven't really seen it that often. So it worries me. It does. And I thought if Thomas Partey, Odegaard, Saka, and our 2 center backs could stay fit, we could make it into the top 4. We had just enough. But without him, and without Tierney, and not really knowing what's going to happen with Nuno and what's going to happen with the shakeup at left back, it does make me think, okay, is this when we're going to have a similar slide like we did in Europa League last season? So it's up to Arteta this time to figure out a way to piecemeal this group together, because that's what really good managers do. I've seen other teams have injuries to key players, and you move pieces around and you make things work. And because Arteta struggled with it last season, I would hope that he had a better solution for it this season. Because if in January they thought, okay, we're not going to bring anybody in, but everybody's going to stay fit, they couldn't have possibly have thought that. So I'm just hoping there's some sort of contingency, but it just sucks because it feels like it's always players that we really need that get injured. And I know that may sound harsh to the fringy type guys. It's never like the fringy dudes. It's always the guys that there's literally nobody that can do what they do. Yeah. And it's giving trauma, it's giving PTSD, you know what I mean?
It feels like it's never the fringy dudes, though, because what we've done is shrunk the squad and depended on a smaller group of all critical pieces, right? Because when I try to think of who the fringy dudes are, I mean, Odegaard, Partey, Gabriel and Benjamin White, Saka, Martinelli, Smith Rowe. I mean, I don't know who I would say is a fringy dude because we've shrunk the group down. And that Tim, I think leads to the question of January. I want to come back to how we solve this in a minute, but since Jess raised it, I do want to talk. I was very clear. Look, I don't know if you know this, but I'm occasionally prone to hysterics. But I actually supported the not doing anything in January move because I did feel that one of the things this club has been bad about recently is expedient moves in the market that long-term don't benefit the project. And what I didn't want to do was, buy a striker who wasn't quite the fit we wanted just because he was available in January. But like, even if we had gone into the market in January, and even if those had been ill-advised moves, but they added some depth, Tim, I didn't see anyone saying, let's get another Partey backup for him and Sambi. I didn't see anyone saying, let's get another left back. So the irony is that the positions that put us in this crisis now make us feel thin, I guess. But I have two sort of thoughts on this. One is, even if we'd been active in January, I don't know that I see us having brought in players for the positions that are now causing us the stress. And the other thing is, like, I don't care what team you want to talk about. The teams that have good seasons, that achieve extraordinary things in their seasons that are beyond their preseason expectations, get a little lucky with injury. When Liverpool won the title, they had 8 outfield players who started more than 34 games, something like that. When Leicester won the title, most of their key players started 38 games. The reality is, we do have Sambi Lokonga. We do have Nuno Tavares. We did buy them in the summer, and we bought them specifically to be backups to these two guys who are now injured. So we did address this, not the last window, but the window before, and it kind of is incumbent upon them now to provide what we bought them for, which is backup to the starters.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what Cedric has been doing as well for the last couple of months.
Not great against Palace, but not terribly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the deal with backups. That's why they're backups. And but in Tavares and Sambi, I think we've gone the right way. We've gone with backups who, perhaps have some potential to be more than that one day. And I personally support that model more than I do getting Cedric's, to be honest. So it is just kind of tough shit, really. Like, you don't, to your point about Liverpool, look what happened when they lost Van Dijk last season and every other defender they had. Like, they finished 4th, didn't they?
That's critical, because they're probably the best team in Europe. And a couple of key injuries to them made them barely a top 4 team last season. That's how this works. Yeah,
exactly. And now they're all back. Look at them. They're challenging for the title again. Like that is exactly it. Even like you look back to, no one ever looks at this when you win the league, but in 97-98 when Arsenal won it, Roy Keane did his cruciate in September that season. Cantona retired the summer before. 2 massive pieces came out of that Manchester United team, and that undoubtedly helped Arsenal to win the title. That's just the way it is. It does just kind of suck. And look, if Kane and Son get injured in Tottenham's next game, they're fucked too. Like, that is just the way it goes. That basically the only team that can absorb losses like that are Man City. Like, I think Man City have won the league with De Bruyne and Aguero not sitting on, not being available for large chunks of the season. But that's Man City. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that is with PSG, by far and away the richest club in the world, and with the biggest resources. So that it is just part of the milieu of a season. You don't want your big players getting injured. I guess really the question around January, as you say, it wasn't about backup left backs or backup midfielders. It was about the striker, and I think that is, probably is still a live debate about whether, Arsenal should have done more to bring in a striker. But yeah, it's just that is the way it is. And I guess the other question, as well as, should we have brought in a striker, is at what point do you kind of look at some of the players who are out and say, but you're always out and we can't have that. And I'm not saying we've reached that point necessarily. In fact, I don't think we have in either case. But there has to be a little question in Arsenal's mind about someone like Kieran Tierney, who, as we've just pointed out, missed the end of last season as well and missed a lot of football at Celtic. And at some point, we've been here before as Arsenal fans. We've seen really good teams play really good football, and then bang, Van Persie's gone and that's it. Or Fabregas has broken his leg and that's that. And, the question, I guess, is not so much about the squad players, but the resilience of those guys that we're really, really reliant on. Like I say, I don't necessarily think we've reached a point where we do away with anyone just yet. But I think that's more where the debate is for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Look, it is the case that there's probably a player or two in every team, barring maybe teams like City where they can have stars at every position and at the backup for every position. But in every team, there's probably a player that if you say, well, without them, they're done. If Tottenham lose Harry Kane, they're a bottom half of the table team. And not that we would wish that on them, but let's wish that on them. If Liverpool lose Van Dijk, we've seen what they are. They're a team that goes from probably potentially winning 3 trophies this season to, last season when they were barely a top 4 team. And I think you can go to any team and you have that issue. And I think if the argument is, well, we should have been active in the market in January, most people would have said we should have been active for a striker. And what I would say is, were we going to buy a striker in January who would have hit the ground running and been better than what maybe Gabriel Martinelli might be, or even Smith Rowe? And so I would say that if your principal complaint is striker, then that's where I would turn to the manager and say, well, maybe it's time to take this very, very talented guy playing on the left and see if he can be that striker. Because at this point, maybe it's reached the level now where the guy who's playing striker is not giving you enough of either of the things he needs to be giving you. Now, that's open for debate, and we can come back to it. Just the issue with depth is that no team feels deep when they have a player playing at the level of Partey and he comes out of the team, because the next guy, whoever he is, can't be what Thomas Partey has been. Now, what Thomas Partey was against Palace, that's pretty easy to replace because he wasn't very good in that game. And, it's the first time in a long time. I watched with Clive the Nuno Tavares performance again. And I have 2 reactions. One is he was not that bad. There was more to that than I appreciated. I overreacted to the performance. And I wonder if maybe Arteta did as well, or if it was purely tactical and we take him at his word. I also look at the goals again, and I think Gabriel Magalhaes, who just had a baby and probably is a little bit sleepless and, wasn't on his best, to say the least, is maybe as much at fault, or to some extent, very much at fault for both goals as well. And when you're a young kid coming into a team having not played in a while, that rock, experienced, top-level center back standing beside you is supposed to be the cradle that helps you get through the game. That didn't happen. Specifically with the left back situation, I think Mikel Arteta has to be brave and trust his young left back that he bought last summer. I think he has to do it, because I think we are now facing enough threat to our system and enough changes that may be needed that starting to move Xhaka back there and not, having anyone with experience in central midfield, or moving Saka there and losing the one thing that's really consistently worked all season on the right-hand side, or, whatever the solution is. I don't see it being any better than just trusting the guy you bought in the summer to be the backup. So would you go that direction at left back, or do you think he needs to go with someone with a bit more experience?
Well, let me just say that when I watched the game, it was after the fact. Thank God, because I couldn't have watched that live. It was so crazy. But
I like that we have a rim shot from that comment, by the way, whatever that was.
That was like my nails hitting, because I'm talking with my hands right now.
I love that you're doing that. We're not on. All right, go for it.
But so I watched it after the fact, and it was more Gabriel for me than Nuno. And you expect Gabriel to play so much better than that when you have somebody that's been outside the team for a while. He does need to step up a little bit more. So I do agree with maybe it was less Nuno and more Gabriel, and we should expect more. I'm cool with that. When it comes to the Nuno thing, I was a little bit harsh on him after the fact, but then it was also me with a slight agenda as well, because I'm a huge Kieran Tierney person. So I'm like, well, you guys wanted Kieran Tierney at the team. That was wrong of me. I'm slapping myself on the wrist for that. It was. I'm sorry.
It's fine. That's how it works on social media. But here we can bring a more erudite level of discussion.
Exactly. So now that I've thought about it and I've seen Nuno play, and I do think you have to go with Nuno. This is why Sambi and Nuno were brought in, for this exact reason. Anybody that you bring in other than Nuno, I think you weaken another position, or we're forgetting that they weren't great in that position, i.e. Cedric at left back. No, nobody wants to see that again. We saw that during Europa League last season. It didn't work. You move Xhaka out of midfield. I don't know about you, but I don't want to see Xhaka versus Lamptey this weekend. I'm not interested in that at all. And so I think Arteta needs to do something different. We've seen this episode before, moving people out of those positions and not using what you have. Use Nuno, but use him correctly. He's basically a wing back. We can talk about whether or not we should have brought in an actual fullback or a wing back based on our system. That's something we can talk about at the end of the season. But right now, Nuno has qualities that we can use, especially at home. Like, we're going to be at home against Brighton. We should have a lot of the ball and we should be attacking. And everybody should be able to trap a ball on the Emirates pitch, right? So I think you use Nuno, you make sure that you have a back three set up next to him, and you let him attack and you build his confidence. It's very clear that Nuno has no confidence.
Well, he's been taken off at halftime his last two performances. That doesn't help.
It doesn't help. And I think these are things where, because Arteta's doing such a good job with other players, you're like, okay, well, maybe Nuno's doing something wrong. But we've seen this in the past with Arteta, where it's kind of like when you're not his person or he's not feeling you, he's really not feeling you. And so we end up with players that we just can't use. And I don't think we can afford that right now. We just don't have a deep enough squad for that. So is there no way to put your arm around him and let him bomb forward and be more like a winger and just shift things around at the back and make that happen? Or do we need to put Xhaka back there and weaken midfield further? I don't think that we need to do that.
The only thing that's hard, right, is when you have so few data points, it's easy to reach wrong conclusions. And with the Nuno Tavares thing, Arteta said it was tactical. And to be fair, he didn't bring off Nuno and bring on a left back. He brought off Nuno and brought on an attacker down 2-0. It may have genuinely been tactical. And given the choice between bringing off Nuno or bringing off Cedric, well, if you bring off Cedric for an attacker, who plays right back? Saka? I don't know. But if you bring off Nuno for an attacker, you can put Xhaka back there and you don't lose much in the attack. So I'm leaning into the idea that maybe this is correlation and not causation kind of situation there. But Tim, look, I have little kids. And as someone who has a little kid, there's a song, you may know it, or Ava may be too young still, but it's called The Wheels on the Bus.
Oh, yeah, she knows that.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, and then it's the wipers on the bus, and the doors on the bus, and the mommies on the bus, and all that. Well, the Tim on the bus goes, drop Lacazette, drop Lacazette, drop Lacazette. And to be fair, you are there's a chorus of people now singing it along with you. I do think that between the Villa game and the Palace game, there are some questions to be asked about what we're getting from that position. I know we've touched on this a bit. I'd like to see Martinelli there. My point is, do we know if Martinelli's a center forward? We don't. He's just a really talented, good player who seems to do good things wherever you put him. He's scored a worldie from the right-hand side. He's been a revelation from the left-hand side. Let's see what he can do through the middle. Or maybe you give it to Smith Rowe with his direct running and his ability to sort of hold the ball and link the play, whatever it is. The problem now, though, is you bring a young, inexperienced Tavares in. You bring a young, inexperienced Sambi in. And then you take out a Lacazette and go the front line of Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli. I mean, you're starting to look like a team of legitimately, a team of kids. And so I wonder if you think that these injuries and the resultant age reduction in the squad will mean that old man up front will keep his place, if for no other reason than just to bolster the experience level.
It's quite possible, yeah. And obviously we're going to have changes in the spine of the team, at least one of them in Partey. I think my argument would be twofold, which would be, if we put Martinelli up front on Saturday, do we think we're risking getting less from him than we're getting from Lacazette at the moment? Because I don't even really see the link-up part happening with Lacazette just now. But I think my other argument, which I'm persuaded by my own argument.
Imagine how that's how that works, just for the record.
But the argument I'm most persuaded by is, without Partey, it's impossible to believe that's not going to impact our ball progression. And if we haven't quite got the same level of ball progression, we absolutely need a striker that runs in behind, in my view. It gives us or moves around a little bit. Otherwise, if we're, like I say, Palace had our number, they shadowed Lacazette, they stopped him getting those balls out wide. If we're getting the ball to him even less, which I think is very much within the range of possibilities without Partey, then we're kind of cutting off an arm, essentially. And I do think having more threat in behind, regardless, is probably a good idea if you think your ball progression is going to be a little bit different. Also, I think it wasn't just Lacazette. Like, Palace kind of had Ødegaard's number, and Lacazette and Ødegaard were very, very close together and quite easily crowded out. And I think giving Ødegaard maybe a different angle or something different to aim for in Martinelli might be the way to go as well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think that if we put Martinelli up front on Saturday, everything will be rosy and fine. It might be, but I'm not sure I necessarily believe this will completely transform the team. I just think we've kind of got to do something a bit different. And I think, contrary to, I completely understand the argument, well, there's too much change already, actually. But I think that's a bigger argument for making that change, to be honest. Not just because it's cumulative, but just because I think not having Thomas Partey would have an impact on Lacazette anyway, even if he was playing well and doing all that good link-up play he was doing a few weeks ago. So that's why I'm kind of persuaded to go with Martinelli, and then, try and bring a level of stability by playing a left-back at left-back, by playing our backup central midfielder in central midfield, and then making the change with Martinelli. That is personally the way I would go. I don't think that's the way Arteta will go. I think that Lacazette will play. I think Sambi Lokonga will play. If he's minded to do something, I think it's Tavares. As much as I would play him, I'm not necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't on Saturday. Put it that way. I think it's much more likely that we'll see an adjustment there, whereas I would prefer to see the adjustment at centre forward personally.
Yeah, my fear is that this just means the system changes, period. And we go to like a back three, for example, and it's Gabriel, Holding, and Ben White, and it's, let's say Martinelli and Saka as wing backs, something along those lines, right? That you get a Xhaka and Sambi midfield, and Odegaard moves into more of like a forward line. I worry this means that we go back to the drawing board, and maybe that is the right thing to do. I just think in the entire time Arteta's been here, and really in the last 4 seasons, the only time I've seen Arsenal consistently be not just a good team, but a team that plays the kind of football I think is repeatably winning football is the last 4 months or so. And it came with a specific system. And I think if you believe you bought the right players and you believe you have the right squad, then use the players you bought and stick with the system that works. If you think we got last summer right, then that means Sambi is a guy we should give a shot to be the Partey role. Now, the one thing I would ask just real quick, Jess, and then I do want to start to shift off of this, is Sambi strikes me maybe as more of the left 8 than Xhaka does, and maybe more of the left 8 in the role, in the system we've been playing, than the Partey replacement, because it's just so much responsibility and space. Could Xhaka drop into the Partey role? And again, I know the idea of Xhaka patrolling the entire midfield is scary, but just hear me out. You can get players closer to him. You can give him the support, out of possession in more of a 4-4-2. But could you move Sambi into that more advanced midfield role that Xhaka's been playing and drop Xhaka a little deeper? Because I think that might suit both of them just a little bit more, and especially in terms of where the responsibility winds up.
Xhaka in the Thomas role is like nightmares.
Are you saying once he gets pressed, it's not going to work great? Have we ever seen any evidence of that?
I mean, because you think about Brighton and how difficult it was for us to play against them the first time around. It was because they were pressing
complete 3 passes in a row.
Yeah, they were pressing us really hard. So it would it would scare me if Xhaka was there by himself. I think with Sambi, we've just seen several times where he's looked like a kid playing a man's game, and so
second half in Anfield come to mind. Is that the one that jumps out? Yeah,
that one for sure. Just reluctant to play him at this point, because even though he's the Thomas Partey replacement, that's like in 3 or 4 years. For me, it's more about sheltering him a little bit so that he can do what he does best, which is some of that deep lying playmaking. He has some of those qualities that Thomas has about like having that angle to get away from somebody and find a pass, but not quite at the same level as Thomas Partey, obviously, because of the experience. I wouldn't, honestly, you guys, I wouldn't count out seeing Xhaka at left back, Sambi by himself in midfield, and ESR and Odegaard in those eights. That's something I can see Arteta doing. That's at home against Brighton. I can definitely see something like that. That would scare me as well. Like, I think I would just want to stay as close to what we've been doing and keep players in positions that feel normal and try to just shelter Sambi and Tavares a little bit more. But like Tim said too, like, I think Lacazette will play. I don't think there's any scenario at this point where Lacazette doesn't play. And that's just where we are. When we decided not to buy a striker, it's kind of like, okay, this is what our life is. It's Lacazette. And I'm not even sure that if you were to take him out, if things didn't go right, you could bring him back in. And that may be me projecting onto his personality, maybe because I don't know him. But like, if you take him out, what can you do? You know, if it doesn't work out, can you bring him back and he'll play hard? I don't know. So, you know what I mean? Like,
no,
it's
do.
One of those where I think Arteta is going to stick with Lacazette, but I can see a shift to that, like Lokonga by himself in midfield with the 2 8s at home and Xhaka at left back. Because I don't think he's going to play Nuno, even though I think he should.
Yeah, you make a really good point. And we'll get off this topic, but you said something that really triggered something for me, Jess, which is not triggered in a bad way, but triggered a positive thought. Tim, like last season when we played with Xhaka at left back, it cost us. But it cost us largely because the left back position was Tierney bombing on and putting in crosses. That was our attack. Over the last 3 months or so, especially since Tommy's been out, Tierney has sort of sat back a little bit more. He's been more withdrawn. Martinelli does the overlapping and the running in behind. And Xhaka has played that more advanced 8 role. So if Xhaka drops back into left back and you bring Smith Rowe into the 8 and Martinelli stays on the left wing, you're not really losing the attacking threat because the left back hasn't had that role for a few months. It's really more the recovery running in the defensive solidity. But like, I actually think this season, to Jess's point, and look, I'd play Nuno, but I think our current system is more set up to accommodate a player like Xhaka playing left back than last season's system is what I'm trying to get to.
I think that's a fair point and one I hadn't thought of because we've already seen that tilt, right? Because we've got Cedric.
Exactly, yes.
And Cedric is an imperfect kind of replacement for Tomiyasu because he's a very different type of fullback. But what we've been doing is just switching those roles over essentially. So yeah, that is actually a very good point. And it kind of, I guess, answers that question we've had about how do we get all our best attackers on the pitch at the same time. And one of the angle we've come at it from the most is, well, can we just play Martinelli instead of Lacazette? But yeah, you're quite right. Potentially we could just sit Xhaka in there. That would probably suit Cedric more to bomb on. And yeah, having Smith Rowe in that left 8, particularly in this game against Brighton. Whether we do that at Stamford Bridge, for example, I don't know. Maybe we do. If it works, why not? But yeah, actually, that's a really good thought and one I hadn't thought of because you can still sit Xhaka in those Xhaka spaces, and actually Smith Rowe is probably much more suited to that left 8 role, certainly in an attacking sense than Xhaka is anyway. So that might be a neat solution, and actually I wouldn't mind betting that that's what actually ends up happening.
Yeah, and like I just want to finish this by saying one thing that I am not someone who just comes out and defends Edu and Arteta. I think I've definitely got the priors and the pedigree to prove that to be the case. But I hear comments like this has exposed how painfully thin the squad is, and I just want to make a point. Like, our backup to Saka is Nicholas frickin' Pepe, who we bought for £72 million. Our backup to Martinelli is Emil Smith Rowe, right? Our backup to Thomas Partey is Sambi Lokonga, who we bought in the summer to be the future at that position. And then a guy, Mohamed El Neni, who's a seasoned professional. Our backup to Tierney is Tavares, who we bought in the summer to be that. Our backup to Tomiyasu, Cedric, he's been playing on our winningest run. Our backups at center back a Rob Holding who, when he comes in, kills the game off. We've got a backup to a goalkeeper who was our starting goalkeeper, who's when he had to come in and played great. Right? I mean, the fact is the area we look thin, the place we don't really have a backup,
one that's lost Elliot,
is Alexander Lacazette. But like, had we bought that in January, which maybe we should have, and maybe we'd be better off, doesn't fix the issues we're facing now with injury. So I'm not saying the squad is where it needs to be, but I'm just saying, go show me these other teams that have really excellent backups at all these positions that aren't named Manchester City. I'm not as sure that exists. And we are still, I think this top four chase has made us forget, like, we did really, really dumb business for a really, really long time. And now we've started doing good business, but we only just started doing it last summer. So, I think we have to remind ourselves that we had a long ways to go to come back from mistakes of the past. I want to get into now, just sort of prognosticating about what this means. Is the party over? He says, with a double entendre in mind. Mm-hmm. We need to discuss that. We also need to maybe look at Everton in the Champions League, because I think those are both kind of fun talking points. But before we do that, look, maybe what Arsenal need more than anything is Indeed, because Arsenal needs talent. We need it. And the best way to find the best talent is with the hiring partner that helps you attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And that is Indeed. With Indeed, you can do all those things I just mentioned, attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And it's the only job site where you are guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find the candidate with the right skills, you can get one powerful hiring partner that helps you do it all. And they partner on every step of the process through time-saving tools like Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews, which is, my favorite part is the Instant Match, because with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your must-have job requirement description. And then you can invite them to apply, so they don't have to wonder which job to apply to. You invite them, and you only pay for the applicants that meet your must-have requirements. According to Talent Nest, Indeed is delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit. That's a lot. $75 sponsored job credit before April 30th by going to Indeed.com/BlueWire. Get your $75 sponsored job credit by going to Indeed.com/BlueWire before April 30th. Indeed.com/BlueWire. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. Tim, is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. And Tim, I have to say, your internet dropped out.
Yes, it did.
Right during the sponsorship, and came back right at the end of it. So yeah. I would say that serendipity is on our side. This is the good karma from the fundraiser. Yeah, right? Yeah. By the way, just a last mention, remember, very, very, very generous donor, £10,000. This donor will match up to £10,000 of donation to the fundraiser between now and Monday evening. So everything you give is doubled, essentially. So go to ArsenalVisionPodcast.com, click charity, and you can get straight to the fundraiser. The funds go straight to the cause. So it definitely worth doing. Okay, Tim. I want to just quickly ask, is the party over? With tongue-in-cheek, but also not tongue-in-cheek. I think there's a lot of panic, obviously, about what's going to happen to us now. I have felt and have said for a while that if we didn't get top 4, that I thought it would be disappointing from the position we were in, because I think that the people chasing us are flawed. I think we're on pace to get high 60s, low 70s points. And I thought that would definitely be enough. And we didn't even have to be that good to do it. But now another team who remain nameless has gotten a little bit hot. We have injury crisis. Our fixtures don't look great. And I'm wondering where you stand right now on not just the hysteria of it's all over, top 4's gone, but also like how we might need to readjust expectations and think about this run. And if it maybe doesn't go the way we might like in terms of how we evaluate the season as a whole, because I think of Emery's season. He had us in position to get top 4. He lost it. It was pretty despicable, and we were all very upset. But I actually think we were a pretty poor team throughout the season period.
Yep.
That played some pretty dreadful football and just got some good results. This is very different from that. So I don't know if you can dissect a question out of that ramble, that'd be amazing. But I think my point is essentially, Have you readjusted expectations, and will we potentially need to rethink how we summarize the season as a result of some of this?
Yeah, quite possibly. Look, the reality is it's very, very difficult to envisage a scenario where we are not hurt by this somehow. Like it's very basically short of getting, what we got, 10 games left, 9 games, short of getting like 30 points, there will be a pinch point somewhere in this running, at the very least, where you go, oh shit, I wish we had Thomas Partey today, I wish we had Kieran Tierney today. Like, that is going to happen, and particularly with some of the games we've got left, going to Chelsea, potentially going to Spurs, well, we're definitely going to all of those places without Tierney and probably without Partey. I think that message to me looked very much like season might be done. Maybe we can get him back for the last couple of games. And even then, we know that Partey has generally been quite slow to get back into it once he does come back. So I think anything else we get out of him this season is a bonus. Yeah, reality biting here, it's impossible to see a scenario where that doesn't hurt us somehow. The question is really, do our opponents for fourth place get hurt somehow? Do they just demonstrate some kind of inconsistency? Does this weekend come and they lose a couple of big players? I never felt I never felt like this was done or anything like that. I'll completely admit, after Villa, for example, I thought, I've got a feeling this is going to happen. This just feels right. This just feels like we've got the momentum. And now, of course, we don't have that, and things change quickly. But yeah, that's why I think the injuries are more damaging than the defeat at Palace. Because let's face it, we were losing that game anyway. We were 3-0 down essentially when Partey went off. That night was already a write-off. So yeah, reality calling, it's very unlikely that we're not going to be hurt by this. And so the question becomes, first of all, I still think nearly everything will come down to that Spurs game. Unfortunately, I do think that is going to be a bit of a shootout. But then it's how flawed are our opponents going to be? I don't think Spurs are going to get 27 points or 30 points or whatever out of their remaining games either. So the question basically has become not can we be really, really good anymore, I think, which is probably where we were a couple of weeks ago. It's can we be good enough? Can we get over the line? That's what it's all about at the moment. I think that's the reality. And to be honest, I never had the feeling like we were running away with it or anything like that. It's a bit like just because of the comparative run-ins of Arsenal and Spurs, Arsenal's always looked harder to me. It's a bit like, when you do the 800 meters or something, and you've got the runners on the outside lane and the runners on the inside lane, and it looks like the guys on the outside lane are miles ahead, and then all of a sudden the course
they round that corner
and you go, oh no, he looked like he was about 20 yards ahead a minute ago. It always had that kind of feel to me. So I was never in the kind of this is art, but I did have a nice kind of I think the momentum might be with us. It does feel a little bit like it's gone to Spurs, I think, but at the same time, look, like we said, if they lose one or both of Son and Kane, if they lose both of Son and Kane, I think they've got basically no chance.
Yeah, they might not win another game.
I'm not sure that will happen. One of them maybe, but yeah, I always had the feeling that both teams have got a couple of really, really strong players, and if they lose them, then they might be in some trouble. And unfortunately, we've lost one of ours, certainly, possibly two in Tierney.
It's hard because I really feel that this system, which has been so good and we've seen such great football, has revolved so heavily around Thomas Partey.
Yeah, and we had that discussion, didn't we? I can't remember if it was after Villa or after another game. Did we have the for fun, fun in inverted commas, discussion? Who is the player that we most can't replace? And I think we kind of said it was Partey just because of the role he's playing. And of course how well he'd been playing it at that point. And yeah, here we are. Life sucks, doesn't it? And we already lost Tomiyasu as well, and I feel like that, enough water's gone under that bridge. Maybe because Cedric's done pretty well, like you say, not great against Palace, but we haven't talked about that much. But I think it's more that he's been out for so long now that it's kind of less of a conversation. But that's another core player, I think, that's gone. So what I'm saying is I'm appealing to the non-existent injury gods. For fuck's sake, there's a team. Just go a couple of miles down the road and turn your Irie down there, please. We're done.
Yeah. I will say this too, like, sports are weird, people. They don't always do what you expect them to do. And like, there's an injury and a fan base is crushed. I'll never forget, there was a quarterback of at the time, I think St. Louis Rams, ironically, a Stan Kroenke team, named Trent Green, and he was considered to be pretty good, and the Rams were supposedly pretty good, and he got injured in preseason, and his whole season was lost, and the coach was crying in the press conference, although he cried a lot, that guy, about the loss and how they're just going to try to rally around this backup no one ever heard of named Kurt Warner, and they went on to win the Super Bowl, and Kurt Warner is in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the reason I bring that up is, like, Sammy Lukonga was the captain of his club side at a very young age. He was called up to a very good national team. It's not out of the question that Sammy Lukonga, now knowing that this is his position to go prove he can do it, steps in and delivers at a high level. There's a really good footballer in there. That's why we bought him. There's an opportunity for Nuno Tavares, who, has all the physical tools and just needs the confidence and the support to be told, this is your position, go play it. And he plays out of his skin. These things are not impossible. And I realize it's a little Pollyannish to say that'll happen, but you buy these players and then these players get their chance and they have to step up and show that you bought them for a reason. So Jess, is the party over? How do you evaluate what's going to happen down the stretch now in the absence of these players, in terms of how you're going to look at what Arteta accomplished this season, what the club accomplished this season? Because I think everybody deserves huge credit for the position we got into. How will you react hopefully it still goes the way we hope, but if it doesn't?
Yeah, my raw reaction to this is it is like, okay, we may not make top 4 now. If you haven't seen our win percentage with and without Thomas Partey, don't look at it now because it will depress you. But my raw reaction really, as soon as I saw Thomas Partey pull up, also knowing that Kieran Tierney was out for the season, was just don't slip out of the top 6. And my reason for that is because I never really got super convinced that the top 4 race was, I know we were in it, but it was really contingent on that starting 11 plus 1 all being kind of fit, playing really, really well, like 99% of the time. It's fine margins. And you also kind of we needed help from Spurs and Man United being not so great. So I tried not to set my heart on it because I just felt like we're not going to have these players the rest of the season. At that point, it was like 17 games left. I was like, there's no way. And we've done pretty well. So knowing that key players are out, and again, up until this point, I have not seen Arteta be able to construct a plan B quick enough or successfully enough where we don't drop off. So if he can do that, then we're still right in there. But I do think, like Tim said, that I feel like the momentum is kind of shifted into Spurs' direction. And looking at their final fixtures, looking at our final fixtures, it's going to come down to whether or not we can beat Man United at home, who they've probably going to have a new manager, won't come in until next season, but those players could perk up and want to look good for the new manager. And, we have to play Spurs away from home. We don't particularly do well there. And yeah, so I'm not feeling great about our top 4 chances, but equally that can change really quickly if we start off against Brighton, we look like a team that can trap a ball and can pass to the next player, and we win that game. If we win that game, then I feel like it'll change. But in that in-between period of a really bad performance and the next one, you can kind of feel like all is lost. So if I see us play well, I think my feelings will change. But right now, I'm just kind of like, the original plan was to make sure that we have some sort of European football next season, and not the Conference League. So as long as we finish in the top 6, I think I can be okay with that. Will I be disappointed because we flirted with top 4? Absolutely. But I can look at where we are with our squad and the importance of the players that are out and be realistic enough to, at least in my mind, be like, and contextualize this as like, we just probably didn't have enough, but that doesn't mean we were crap. But we did make the improvements, and we have improved to a level where next season, with an additional striker and a couple more players, we'll probably be right where we want to be. I hope that's a good answer for people. It's like, it doesn't sound too negative, but
well, it's your honest feelings. Like, that's the more important thing. Whether it sounds negative or positive, it's what you're feeling. And I think everybody is struggling today to feel positive. I would say that maybe I think the point you made about Man United is maybe they perk up and they want to impress a new manager. I mean, I could see it the other way, which is they have nothing left to play for and they know the guy managing them doesn't matter, and most of them aren't even going to stay at the club, guys like Pogba and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I could see them being a dead team. I could see West Ham, by the time we play them, having very little left to go play for. Same with Leeds. Southampton and Brighton have nothing to play for. Newcastle will likely have nothing to play for. Everton may already be down when we play them. This season feels to me like 3 games. Chelsea away, United at home, Spurs away. I think we need 6 from those 9. And I guess maybe we need 7 from those 9. What I will say is it can't be 0 at Spurs. That's what it can't be. And the Emery season is funny because I don't think of this anything like the Emery season. I think this has been more enjoyable over the last few months. We played better football in the last few months than we ever did under Emery. But a bad result against Palace started the wheels coming off the top 4 chase, and failing to beat Spurs away when Aubameyang missed a penalty is the difference between us having finished above them and not. And like, we're back in that world again. No thanks to the universe. What I will say is, like, whoever is writing the script for the Amazon documentary is putting too many twists in the story. Like, it's a classic rookie writer's mistake. Too many twists. It's not believable. But if you could put one more twist where we get really good now and go on and win everything and finish top 4, that would be appreciated. Tim, before we get out of here, let's quickly touch on some non-Arsenal stuff that I think is just interesting generally. One of them is the Everton thing. We may have a chance to relegate Everton on the final day. Lampard probably won't be there. My hope is that Everton have nothing to play for on the final day, because if they get a competent manager and they're scrapping to stay up and we need the 3 points, that just feels like stress none of us need in our lives, especially sipping champagne in a VIP box with some very generous donors. But what I will say is that Everton going down is one of those things that kind of makes me laugh. But if I think about it, it's probably pretty bad. It would be bad for their club for sure. I think it might be bad for the Premier League. And it probably means someone like Burnley stays up, which I'm not saying I'm rooting for. So how do you feel about, there's a curiosity about a sort of ever-present, mostly present Premier League team like Everton that's got reasonable resources and pretty big club going down. But how do you feel about it actually in terms of whether it's any good for football?
Yeah, they've got the second longest stint in the top flight after Arsenal. They're quite a few years behind Arsenal still, but
it does show how badly it can go wrong in a competitive Premier League if you spend poorly, though, right? Like, nobody is safe, really.
yeah, indeed, and that's what the Everton story is: spending very poorly. And who is a key figure behind the scenes at Everton?
Usmanov.
No, I was actually thinking more some of the signings they've made. One of the complaints that Everton fans have had is around the involvement of Kia and whether some of those signings are for Everton or for Kia. No more
two characters I'm happy to have away from our club, to be fair.
Yeah, very much so. So no more comment on that, really. It's one of those things. It kind of reminds me of, when like the World Cup semi-finals or the FA Cup semi-finals come around or whatever, and you root for like the big teams to go out, and then it happens, and then like the finals like Wigan Portsmouth or something, and you go, actually, I'm not sure I wanted this.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Everton feels like. It kind of, in the short term, it's like, oh, this would be quite interesting. This would be quite funny. But I don't think I want it to happen. I quite like Everton. I know they're about to move out of Goodison Park, actually. But Goodison Park is one of, atmosphere-wise, one of the best in the Premier League and has been for a long time. Always found Everton fans to be, very, very kind of very good humoured, very behind their club, and they have to put up with loads of shit sharing a city with Liverpool fans. So I don't really want to see it happen. The Lampard factor kind of makes me want to see it a little bit more, I have to say. It's a bit like looking at a car crash, isn't it? It's a bit like, oh, I shouldn't look at this, but I kind of want to. But do you know what? Like, for years, Everton really wanted, and it looked like needed, that kind of external investment. They were kind of running along on a shoestring, and then they got that external investment, and they've just spent it so badly across different managers, different directors of football, different forces pulling in different directions. And by the way, just to show what a kind of unified club Everton are, Everton women, very well, they're not going to go down because only one team goes down in the WSL. They are doing terribly as well. They've done exactly the same thing. They brought in loads of expensive players, summer on summer. They've had 3 different managers this season, and they're third bottom, which, like I say, won't relegate them, but exactly the same. So it shows you that club is just so poorly run, and what they keep doing is just throwing money at things. But the thing is, they're throwing money fairly blindly, like throwing shit at a wall, and like, that doesn't work when you've got teams like, no matter how well heeled Everton are or have been, that approach really doesn't work when you've got other teams doing that, but with a lot more money. Like, maybe 20, 25 years ago, Everton throwing money around like that might have got them somewhere, but like, there are plenty of other teams doing that. And what the teams like below that kind of big financial 6, as it were, the way they get on is by being smart. And Everton haven't been smart. Everton have just decided they'll throw money at things, and they have my sympathy in a way, because I think they're in such an in-between spot when it comes to attracting players, attracting coaches. They're not quite on that level where they attract that top level, and instead what they've been doing is paying lots of money for the level and sometimes the levels below that. And it is essentially, it just shows you how difficult it actually is to try and break the hegemony of like, again, I call them the big financial 6, because they're not necessarily been the top 6 for the last few years. So yeah, it shows you precisely that, Elliot. And there are lots of clubs who've spent a lot less money and have a lot less money than Everton that are in far better health, in a sporting sense at the moment.
Yeah, the danger of getting it wrong in the Premier League now is, it doesn't matter who you are, you can go down. And like, I look at the Everton lineup that played Burnley last night, and I'm not like, it's trash. It's not trash. There are we made top 4 plenty of times with Alex Iwobi playing, by the way. And like, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison would be taken by probably every Premier League team, if the money is right. And there's Damari Gray is not a bad player. I mean, I realize he didn't start, and they have played Decore. I think can play. He's not amazing, but he can play.
Jordan Pickford's England's number 1, has been for several years.
That's open for debate going forward, I would suggest. But yeah, you're right. And like, I guess what I'm saying is, then you look at Burnley and you're like, well, but they're trash. And they're like, well, he could do a job, and he's not like, there's talent everywhere. And Sean Dyche, much as I can't stand what he thinks about football, he is a good coach, and Frank Lampard isn't. And that's really it. You can't put clowns in charge of your club and expect to get away with it. You can't do that anymore. The days of an old English lad being handed the reins after failing at 5 different places in 4 different relegations, like, you're going to go down. And just like, I don't know. Like, I wonder how Liverpool fans feel. Like, on one hand, they must die laughing if Everton go down, but do they want a season where they don't get the Merseyside derby, especially in part because they're probably going to dominate it for years to come? We might be a lot happier if Spurs were out of the league, to be fair, but there is that can't smile without you part of rivalry. Like, I think this is a cautionary tale too to owners who want to come in a little bit, because it is a reminder that this is not the Premier League of old where you're gifted a place in it as long as you're not one of the small clubs, quote unquote. You can go down. And so it looks like Everton are going to. I'm wondering if you have any sort of thoughts on the cascading failures that need to take place for a club of their size to be in this position.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just you're bad for one or two windows. It's just layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of bad decisions from the top that trickle down onto the pitch. And I would say that generally, I don't have much love for any other teams but Arsenal. So I can find a bit of joy watching anybody have a difficult time. But I do feel slightly bad for the Everton fan base. I have to say that because I just feel like they've been told that they're going to get better so many times, only to be right on the cusp of relegation. And their neighbors, their rivals, could potentially win a quadruple. Like, the pain that they must feel on a daily basis is something that hopefully Arsenal can look at and say, like, we don't ever want to be in a similar situation. And make no mistake about it, we were definitely tiptoeing in that neighborhood for years, where it was gradual, but every single year we were going lower, 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 and lower. We've had people in and around our club like Kia Jarapshin making decisions on transfers, sticking us with not so great players on huge wages. And so I think Everton, whether they go down or not, is a cautionary tale for any club that thinks it's okay to just throw money at it. And that's what's funny about, like, even what Gary Neville said the other day about, he was on the Overlap and was talking about Arsenal and the top four, and this is as far as we can go if we get top four. And he actually was like, well, Man United will be fine because they'll just throw money at it. And I'm like, have we learned nothing? Have we learned nothing? You can't just throw money at the problem. And when you look at a team like Liverpool in particular, which is in stark contrast of Everton, every single player that they bring in fits them to a T. The manager that they brought in fit the ethos of the club, the fans, the community, everything. And so, if anything, there's enough blueprints out there to show you what you need to do. You just need to open up your eyes. And so Everton is just one of those where it's like, wow, this is really what can happen to you. And it was insult to injury, I think, is for Chelsea fans yesterday, probably because they still love Frank. And not only did they get slapped in the Champions League by Real Madrid, but Frank is down there just, and by the way, that's a terrible appointment in every way, shape, and form. Like, why are you not getting Big Sam?
Well, the wrong guy for the wrong situation at the wrong place. Even if you think there are things Lampard's good at, that ain't it. Yeah, I agree. And like, this is the point. You don't make one bad mistake and wind up there. You make multiples. And like, if people want to say, why did Arsenal wind up an 8th place team? It wasn't any individual bad mistake. It was many bad mistakes. And why are we now pushing back to top four? Because even just one window of getting it right and starting to do things the right way, when you have enough resources and you have the right coach, which maybe we actually do have, thankfully, you can start to see the progress pretty quickly. Tim, as a final point here on the Champions League, I got to say, I think Chelsea are also a reminder, sort of in the same vein of what we're discussing with Everton, that like, transfers aren't a guarantee. And building football clubs is difficult. And even when you look across the city at a team that you think is doing it right, it can go badly. I mean, I was pretty sure that like the moves that Manchester United made, Sancho aside, were not good. But with Chelsea, you say, gosh, Lukaku, they're adding that, you know, and Timo Werner, maybe he'll come back. Like, it hasn't worked. And it's spectacularly not worked. And now the wheels are coming off a little bit, slapped by Brentford, slapped by Real Madrid. Now Madrid, a little bit different and done on the back of an insane Benzema performance. I get it. Like, what a player he is. Proving once again that I am right about age curves like I am about everything. He says, not being serious. But like, when you look at Chelsea, do you have some sympathy also for Arsenal, like holding their fire in January on striker or needing to be a little circumspect? Because like, I don't know a lot of Arsenal fans that would have turned down Timo Werner or Lukaku, and it certainly hasn't worked at Chelsea. And like, for a team that spent really big on a lot of firepower up front, very little of it has gone the way they would have hoped, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always maintained that Chelsea's aim is not to spend their money smartly. It never has been. There are reasons for that. Maybe I won't say for fear of lawyers, but but there are reasons they just throw money around. Like, what the hell did they think they were buying in Lukaku? He's 29. He's been at the club once before. Like, how can you buy a 29-year-old striker and then go, he can't actually do the things we want him to do? Why the fuck did you buy him then? Like, I feel really sorry for Lukaku, because he's come off a brilliant couple of years at Inter where Conte used him perfectly understood what his actual strengths are, which are not as a target man. He's much better at running channels, running with the ball, coming off that kind of half space.
Played right wing against us to devastating effect a couple of times.
Yeah, and that's he didn't quite play right wing for Inter, but that was where he spent a lot of time in that right channel. Like, they understood how to use him. It kind of looks like Chelsea just went, he, like the mistake that has been made numerous times in Lukaku's career of just, completely miscasting him because of his build. And look, let's face it, maybe because of other things. But it's just like, what the hell were you doing? And Timo Werner, it's like, did you not know I'm buying Havertz and Werner at the same time? And it's like, well, how do you use both of those players? Because it's very difficult to see how you get both of those into the same team. And again, to make the same comparison, Chelsea women, exactly the same. They just throw money at players, and it kind of works better for them there. But there's not really any strategy in it. And I find it absolutely incredible that you'd spend that much money on a very, very known quantity who has already been at your club and then completely misuse them like that. Like, that's just stupid. But Chelsea do that a lot. They are stupid with their money. That is why they don't win the league every year or compete for the league every year. That's why they are a high-level cup team, generally speaking, because that's what they do. Man City, they control everything so much that they are always, like, every year, they are at least in the final stages of everything. There are never crises or disasters at Man City. Like, they control everything within an inch of its life, whereas Chelsea are much more chaotic. And look, when you've got that much money, of course you're going to be successful. Like, no matter how you go about it, given what we've just said about Everton, but generally speaking, you will be successful with that level of investment. And that's the thing about Everton. They don't have that level of investment. And I don't think Chelsea, as much as I do think they're quite stupid with their money sometimes, they've not been as stupid as Everton. But I look at, like, people say, oh yeah, but the Chelsea model, and they've won all these trophies. And I kind of think they could and should have won a lot more, like particularly league titles. Like, they won a lot of FA Cups, and look, we've done that as well, more than they have, actually. And they've won the Champions League a couple of times, and, you can't really argue with that. But I think, like, your year-on-year league performance says a lot about your health as a club. And I look at City and Liverpool at the moment, and I just think those are much, much better run clubs than Chelsea. I think Chelsea have been kind of badly run ever since Abramovich came. It's just they spend so much money that it kind of doesn't matter, but they could have done a lot more, I think. And I think they continue. Basically, the model at Chelsea is, or has been, it probably won't be anymore, but the model has been the owner buys players that he quite likes or likes the sound of, and then just goes, right, you coach, get on with it. And by the way, if you can't do it in 6 months, you're gone. And that's basically their model. And I think that all of their success they've had is in spite of that model, not because of it.
Yeah, well said. I have to say, though, seeing Lukaku struggle as a target man and struggle this season generally puts into even sharper relief and context that Pablo Mari performance against him at the start of the season. Because, I mean, that was, the less said about that, the better. I will also point out that, like, we're getting the ultimate weird Unai Emery experience on the other side of this, which is beating Bayern Munich in a knockout round of a Champions League tie and Francis Coquelin scoring a goal. Now VAR ruled it out. But, like, we were definitely in the upside down for the last couple of days. But again, the Unai Emery experience, like, what is it? It's about being really good in European Cup competition. But there he is in 7th place in La Liga on like 12 wins, 9 draws, 9 losses. And it all feels very Unai. And like, he has definitely grown in my esteem a little bit since he's been gone, because sometimes it's a bad fit between club and manager. But like, has there ever been a more clear example of someone who's like, put me in the cups and get someone else to manage your league campaign? He is definitely that guy. I think we should leave it there. We've waffled on long enough. We're going to have some Patreon content tomorrow, the instant reaction on Saturday, another pod on Monday, at which time it will be the last day to get into the fundraiser if you want to be into the VIP draw, the VIP luxury box at the Emirates for the Everton game to see us achieve St. Tottenham's Day, qualify for the Champions League, and relegate Everton all on the same day in a box with Andrew, Arsblog himself, Tim, Clive, Paul, myself. And please, if I know I think we're actually going to get past our goal today, which is amazing, and I will say more about that in the future. But regardless, we'll leave that entry window open till the end of day Monday, because we have this donor who has agreed to give £10,000, up to £10,000 matched for every donation between now and Monday evening. So everything you give is doubled, which is incredible because this community is incredible. Jess is on Twitter at Jacinho Tweets. Jess, what a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining, and we'll have to have you on again. Tim's on Twitter at Stoberto. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Plenty more to come. But is the party over? I don't think so, friends. I think we see the development, the growth of the young future of this club as we go on to achieve St. Tottenham's Day. Without hope, we have nothing. So let's stay hopeful. My name is Elliot Smith, Blackman, Twitter, Yank Gunner. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10. Brighton, no.